On August 29, Kazakhstan marked the 33rd anniversary of the closure of the Semipalatinsk nuclear test site. This date also coincides with the International Day of Action Against Nuclear Testing. To observe these significant occasions, Kazakhstan hosted Izumi Nakamitsu, the UN Deputy Secretary General and the High Representative of Disarmament Affairs. This year has seen a record number of active conflicts globally over the past 3 decades. The latest UN report reveals that nearly all countries are boosting their military investments. With escalating geopolitical tensions among major global powers, the threat of nuclear conflict is increasingly real. In an exclusive interview with New Time, Ms. Nakamitsu praised Kazakhstan's role in advancing joint efforts against nuclear testing and also in promoting nuclear disarmament. Watch the fragment of the interview right now.
Ms. Nakamitsu, thank you very much for joining us. It's a great pleasure and honor to have you in our studio. And your visit to Astana is somehow connected to the occasion of the International Day of Nuclear against the nuclear tests. And I wonder, why did you pick exactly Kazakhstan to visit on the eve of this event? As far as you know, Kazakhstan also closed its Semipalatinsk nuclear test site.
Yes.
So I think maybe there is a link between these events.
Absolutely. No, thank you for having me. The official reason why I came here is, of course, with the government of Kazakhstan. We are co-organizing this workshop on nuclear weapon-free zones, which is still being held at the Foreign Ministry conference room. And so yesterday I opened that conference. And but also it was very important for me to visit Kazakhstan again, as Kazakhstan is actually one of the very strongest leaders of nuclear weapon related issues. As you say, International Day Against Nuclear Test is on the 29th of August. It's in the margins of that time period. It was initiated by Kazakhstan, as you know, and now it has become a very important commemoration of nuclear tests. And it was on the occasion of course, Semipalatinsk closure.
How do you think, what's the role of countries like Kazakhstan and the whole Central Asian region for assisting the global efforts against the nuclear tests, nuclear weapons, disarmament in general?
Right. I mean, actually, Kazakhstan is a strong leader in several different fronts related to nuclear disarmament. Of course, the International Day Against Nuclear Testing, I mean, you are one of the initiators, strong voices against nuclear tests, a very strong advocate and a supporter for CTBT, Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. And you know, the whole issues related to nuclear testing at the United Nations, you know, you are the leader and the leading voice for those issues. But it's not limited to nuclear testing. For example, this year we had a second preparatory meeting of the NPT, the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. And that second preparatory committee meeting was chaired by Kazakhstan. So Kazakhstan is one of the leadership of those NPT process currently. And also next year in March,
in New York, right?
Yes, there is this third meeting of states parties of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, another very important international treaty mechanism related to the elimination of nuclear weapons.
What are your hopes for this conference?
Well, we hope that there will be, you know, a strong sort of movement towards really, you know, developing, strengthening this new treaty. TPNW is still a new treaty mechanism. There are many work that still needs to be done to increase the number of states parties, you know, universalization efforts, developing, you know, the kinds of mechanisms, which is very new approach in the nuclear disarmament field, you know, victims assistance environmental remediation efforts. All these issues actually are under the leadership of Kazakhstan. It's not just in the TPNW framework, but also to the General Assembly. Kazakhstan, together with Kiribati, a Pacific nation.
So the new mechanism are going
yes.
to, going to be discussed.
So
are there any announcement that need to be done? I mean, what are they will be focused on? Maybe the new angle?
So we recently did a Secretary General's report on victims' assistance issues, and one of the things that was promoted in that SG report sort of drafting was a potential establishment of a trust fund, voluntary trust fund, so that the victims will be really assisted. We hope that those discussions will also make some progress in the context of a General Assembly, in addition to the treaty mechanisms in TPNW. So that's another front that you are leading. And then, of course, this workshop that we are currently doing in Kazakhstan, issues related to nuclear weapon-free zones. Of course, you are, again, an initiator of the Central Asian free zone. The treaty, the agreement was signed in Semipalatinsk. It's very symbolic meaning. And the work that we are doing together with Kazakhstan and a couple of other countries now is to make sure that those different free zones, there are several different free zones around the world, they'll be able to work together more closely, share information, share lessons learned, and potentially also, feed into the ongoing process of creating a new free zone, for example, in the Middle East.
So now you already touched on the situation, overall situation around nuclear disarmament, and as we know, the NPT was signed in 1945, but still, after this year, even though countries signed this document, there are other countries who became nuclear armed after this event. Which soft power, perhaps, mechanism would you use against these countries, or to somehow, balance these countries, especially taking into account the Middle Eastern region, which is always, have these geopolitical tensions?
No, I think it's very important. I mean, first and foremost, the geopolitical situation, the security environment in the world is actually going towards a very concerning, very worrying situation. The big powers with nuclear weapons, they are in a very competitive path. The tension between them definitely increasing. And of course, you mentioned the Middle East, but also in Ukraine, those security concerns are really there. And against these, wars and conflicts, behind those conflicts, there are always nuclear weapons issues behind it as a background. So, we say at the UN, the risks of nuclear weapons actually being used, I don't think any country would like to have a deliberate nuclear confrontations. I don't believe that. But potentially any miscalculation, misunderstandings, leading to a sudden escalation of tension, which is not contained, an uncontrollable escalation that could potentially end or result in a use of nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
So we're living in a very dangerous environment at the moment. So the nuclear weapons issues is really at the center of all these security concerns.